Tonight on Currents News, money is tight and a Catholic education can be costly. One school going the extra mile to make sure kids can still attend while their parents are out of work.
St. Francis Prep alumni are stepping up to make sure no kid goes without their Catholic education. I'm Jessica Easthope, and that's ahead.
Fighting for babies and moms so they have the right care in the midst of this crushing pandemic.
It's just also letting these women and their families know that they're not alone.
New York Governor Andrew Cuomo is clearing the way for people to worship God together again. Churches will be open, but where? A dramatic test run shows how quickly the virus can be spread while breaking bread. It may be a while until you sit down at a restaurant, but you'll want to watch this. Plus, New Jersey Bishop David O'Connell is leading the charge against Congress cutting aid to Catholic schools. He's with us. The news starts right now. Good evening, I'm Christine Persichetti. The dream of a Catholic education lives on, thanks to the St. Francis Prep community in Fresh Meadows, Queens, that's taking care of their own with help from a well-known graduate. Currents News' Jessica Easthope has the story.
From the outside, St. Francis Prep looks like an ordinary high school. The people who have walked these halls are anything but.
I am so proud of our alumni and what they are doing for the current population.
Over the last few months, Brother Leonard Conway's job as president of the school has changed dramatically.
Parents saying that they were already experiencing financial difficulties because of the coronavirus.
That's when Brother Leonard made a decision that would change lives. It did for Allison.
It's a blessing that, we never thought would happen.
Allison has 2 children in St. Francis Prep, and after her husband contracted the virus in March, she found herself not knowing how she would pay the $10,000 tuition to keep her kids in the school they love so much.
I reached out to Brother Leonard just to express to him, how, we might need a little time. My husband now is out of work. I have a business of almost 20 years that was closed down. And here we were, like in 5 weeks, our entire world had just fell apart.
Brother Leonard didn't give Allison time. Instead, he gave her something more. He told her, don't worry about it.
I said that to Brother Leonard. I said, this phone call you made to me is life-changing. And there's no way to even thank someone for that.
Born out of the need of so many Prep families came the Terrier Star Fund, a way to collect donations from alumni to keep children in the school, even if their parents have lost jobs or are suffering financially. Some donations came in, and then one Prep graduate stepped up in a big way.
I don't want any kid not be able to return to Prep in the fall because of a lack of funds. That's just not going to happen.
Julie CHEN, CBS anchor and host of Big Brother, made an offer that showed she's never let go of the Franciscan values she learned at Prep.
I will match every single donation. There's no cap on this.
Julie said the inspiration to help started back in her Prep days.
That Good Samaritan story that I first read about and studied when I was a sophomore at St. Francis Prep has come full circle now, and that will always stay with me.
The Terrier Star Fund has been extended through the fall in an effort to reach every single student and family in need. They've already raised close to $400,000, which of course Julie CHEN will double. So Christine, you should be very proud of your alma mater.
Yeah, this is exactly why I'm so proud to be a Prep graduate. Jess, what is the need like right now at the school?
Yeah, Brother Leonard gave me an update a little while ago. More than 100 families have actually reached out and say they need help, and they've done everything they can to help those families. The school is actually not raising its tuition this year, but they are increasing their financial aid. Brother Leonard has told every single student and family, as for tuition right now, pay what you can when you can, and the rest will be taken care of.
That's just an amazing effort by Prep alumni. Thanks, Jess. You can make a donation to help families with kids in Catholic academies and parish elementary schools in the Diocese of Brooklyn. Futures in Education for Brooklyn and Queens has set up an emergency relief fund. Go to futuresineducation.org/relief. Last year, Futures provided over $7 million in scholarships to 5,000 students. We'll repeat the website at the end of the newscast. These are frightening times, especially for families about to welcome a newborn into the world. The March of Dimes is offering support for mom and baby during the crisis, and families in the Diocese of Brooklyn are using their feet to join the effort. Currents News' Emily Drooby has the story.
The Quaglione family is out walking, but it's not just for the fresh air or the exercise, it's for babies.
I like knowing that people are actually raising money and walking around their house for the kids who were born in the NICU like me.
In 2011, John's wife Carrie was 32 weeks into her pregnancy and realized something was wrong.
She wasn't feeling well.
That was the night their daughter Natalie was born, 8 weeks early.
So he said she'll probably be there for 6 weeks in the NICU.
It ended up being 13 terrifying days, but Natalie made it home safely. Soon after, John, who's the deputy press secretary for the Diocese of Brooklyn, came across a commercial for March of Dimes.
I said to my wife that morning, next year I want to do it.
The march was started by Franklin D. Roosevelt in the late 1930s. Funds the nonprofit raised led to the creation of the polio vaccine. They eventually shifted their focus to helping women have healthy pregnancies and babies. The Quaglione family got involved back in 2013, raising thousands through their yearly walk. Then trouble struck again. His second daughter, Olivia, was also premature.
We saw signs that it could have been around 25, 26, 27 weeks.
She was born at 36 weeks, only 1 week early. John credits medicine funded by March of Dimes research for helping save his baby. That making the March of Dimes even more important to the family, which is why despite the pandemic, they wanted to continue to support the cause, taking part in the virtual walk this year to raise money. Amy Bishop's family has been involved with the nonprofit for years. Her twins were born 10 weeks early. She also participated in the virtual walk this year, saying parents of premature babies need more support than ever these days.
Letting these women and their families know that they're not alone and that people have been through it and there's people there for you.
Both the Bishop and the Quaglione families proving that even a pandemic can't stop people from supporting a cause close to their heart. In Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, Emily Drooby, Currents News.
Small religious gatherings will be allowed in New York State starting tomorrow, the solemnity of the Lord's Ascension. Governor Andrew Cuomo is limiting the services to no more than 10 people, adding that as a former altar boy, he understands how comforting religion can be. The New York State Catholic Conference is applauding the move. Communications Director Dennis Paust, speaking for the state's bishops, is saying our Catholic people are hungry for the Mass and are anxious to gather together again in prayer and worship. We have a moral obligation to protect our congregations and our clergy from COVID-19, so we will proceed slowly and responsibly and collaboratively. Public masses are not yet being celebrated in the Diocese of Brooklyn, and for tomorrow's Ascension Thursday, live masses in 8 languages will air on Net TV. Here's the schedule: 8 a.m. Korean, 9 Creole, 10 Italian, 11 English, 12 Polish, 1:30 p.m. Spanish, 3 Mandarin, and 4 p.m. Igbo. Net TV is New York's Catholic station. You can find it on Verizon's Fios Channel 48, on Optimum's Channel 30, and on Spectrum's Channel 97. The Mass schedule is online at netny.tv. Houston's Holy Ghost Church is closing its doors again after priests and brothers who live and work there tested positive for the coronavirus. All masses at the parish are canceled until further notice. This week, Father Donald Kirchner died at his parish home after possibly being exposed to the virus. The church had reopened earlier this month. Having churches open is essential to American life. That's according to a group of high-level Catholic doctors. The panel from some of the nation's top research hospitals and universities are saying churches should be able to reopen as safely as other essential services. The Catholic Medical Association is offering a roadmap that includes recommendations on how to hear confessions and resume public celebrations of the Eucharist. Dr. Robert Tabali is a member of the Catholic Medical Association, and he's here every Friday to answer your coronavirus questions. So send them to askthedoctor@desalesmedia.org. That's askthedoctor@desalesmedia.org. Today marks a milestone. All U.S. states have now partially emerged from coronavirus shutdowns. At the same time, the feds are putting out new guidelines on how to stay safe. Nadia Romero has the latest.
For the first time since coronavirus locked down the country, all 50 states are now partially reopened.
It's been a rough time. 2 months without, normal operations is not easy in the restaurant business.
Each state relaxing restrictions at different rates. In Georgia, people socially distance as they work out. But in Nevada, gyms must still stay closed. Go! That's prompting the owners of a Las Vegas CrossFit to organize a peaceful protest as they rally to reopen.
We need people to realize that this is a reality that's crushing families, crushing our family, and it's tough.
To guide the reopening, the CDC released a detailed roadmap for places like schools, restaurants, and childcare facilities. Among the advice, half-filled school buses with every other row clear.
The community-based community transmission that overwhelmed the public health departments in late February, March, April, that's really coming down.
A crucial aspect of the CDC guidelines, states should only open if COVID cases have gone down for 2 weeks. But as of Wednesday, in at least 18 states, new case counts are rising.
If we see dramatic increases, then yes, the way we're doing it, we can pause.
As businesses stock up on sanitizer and open their doors, one thing is clear. Life still won't be what it was before coronavirus. In Washington, Nadia Romero, Currents News.
Here are some more headlines. Federal Reserve officials are worried that coronavirus-related lockdowns could inflict lasting damage on the U.S. economy. In notes released today from last month's Fed meeting, they expressed concerns about bankruptcies and long-term unemployment. The S&P 500 rose more than 1% today on the strength of retail sales. Walmart, Target, and Lowe's all reported higher than expected sales. The controversial drug hydroxychloroquine is now authorized for use on COVID-19 patients by the Brazilian government. The okay comes after 2 health ministers quit in opposition to that approval. A state of emergency is in effect in central Michigan after 2 dams failed, causing massive flooding. This is drone footage of the Tittabawassee River, which reached a historic level Wednesday morning after some heavy rain and was still rising. Thousands of people were ordered to evacuate. So far, no injuries or deaths have been reported. Meanwhile, in India, huge waves crash against a barrier as super cyclone Amphan makes landfall. A number of Catholic organizations volunteered to help millions of people in India and Bangladesh evacuate ahead of the storm. The cyclone is equivalent to a Class 5 hurricane and is the strongest storm ever recorded in the Bay of Bengal. There's a lot more news headed your way as states start to reopen. Before you start making those dinner plans, you'll want to chew on this. We'll show you how easily germs can spread in restaurants. Plus, a Catholic bishop leading the fight against a federal aid package that offers no help to private schools. And it's back to school in South Korea, but hitting the books is very different this time around.
Now you can help us put your faith in the news. The next time you capture a newsworthy event, send us your pictures or video. It's easy. Go to netny.tv/sendus and you may see your submission on Currents News.
We're all chomping at the bit to go outside, return to restaurants, and get back to normal. But before doing that, you'll want to watch this report from Randy Kay in Florida. It dramatically shows how easy it is for germs and viruses to spread.
Under an ultraviolet light, this will glow.
Okay, and that's going to simulate germs on my hand.
Correct. So this will simulate contact spread, from you to other things that you touch and maybe touched by someone else.
Dr. Patrick Hughes is an ER doctor who oversees the emergency medicine simulation program at Florida Atlantic University.
Hi, ladies.
Hey. Hi. He invited us to lunch, designating me the so-called spreader, so we could see how germs on my hand, which could be coronavirus droplets, could spread in a restaurant setting. Then it's time to turn on the ultraviolet lights to see what I may have spread. Remember, I was the only one with what could have been the virus on my hand. You didn't have any germs on you. I was the spreader.
Right.
So when you look at my hands and look how it transferred to some of you just by sharing items at the table or a knife in this case or a water glass. I mean, even it only takes a little bit, right, to make somebody else sick. How about that bowl of chips I passed around?
You can see where she touched the edge of the bowl to pass it around, the simulated germs, stuck right to the surface.
And then everybody else touches the bowl. Same with the salt and pepper shakers and the pitcher of water. There was contact spread on the cups and menus too, even my lunch friends.
This is the spot where when Randy came in to have lunch with her friends, she touched right on the shoulder just to greet everybody, and you can see the outline of her palm print, her handprint right on the shirt. It's quite scary, the amount of spread that one person can have in a room like that.
We also wanted to see what would happen if you're out for lunch or dinner with a friend or your family at a restaurant and somebody coughs. So let's turn out the lights and let's see the cough. There were now more droplets on the bowl of chips, the menus, and the water pitcher too. Look at what happened to the fork after that simulated cough. Those would be real germs if that was a real cough. On my fork, I would have picked up the fork, not being able to see those germs with the naked eye. Even the woman sitting to my right, several feet away from the mannequin that coughed, had droplets on her face.
You can see it's on her face, her glasses, her mask.
If she wasn't wearing a mask, she would have breathed it in.
Correct.
That was Randy Kay reporting. The CDC believes COVID-19 is mainly spread by person-to-person contact. A new aid package passed by the House is getting pushback from Catholic leaders. The HEROES Act would cut most benefits to Catholic schools. Tonight we're joined on the phone by Trenton, New Jersey Bishop David O'Connell, who's been speaking out against the bill. And Bishop, you wrote to Catholics in your diocese about the bill, saying it has a lot of good things, but also some real problematic areas. Can you highlight some of the positives and negatives you found in the bill?
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. I'm delighted to be able to be with you. At one point, I did serve in the great Diocese of Brooklyn, Queens, when I was at St. John's University. So it's
nice to have you.
Yeah, it's good to be back. Yes, I'm very concerned because we see here in New Jersey, where we're struggling already with our Catholic schools, we see this elimination or withdrawal of funding very detrimental to our ability to survive, and that's not an exaggeration.
Right. Now, the bill's gotten a lot of pushback. 5,200 Catholics from your diocese wrote in. State Catholic conferences mobilized around it. The Conference of Catholic Bishops helped write into Congress. Why do you think it was passed by the House?
I mean, you'd have to ask some of these people, but I must tell you, I find it very consistent with a lot of measures that are being put forward or proposed or put into legislation that really take no regard whatsoever for the existence of non-public school families or religious families. They just don't seem to have any view whatsoever that we need to be included.
Right. Well, the bill isn't expected to be passed through the Senate. So if it does fail, what would you like to see in an emergency relief fund bill?
Well, I certainly would like to see, primarily my interest is in some provision for our non-public schools. I mean, that's my focus right now. Obviously, my background influences me a bit because my whole life as a priest I've spent in some form of Catholic education. So I have seen firsthand the good that is done, the good that is accomplished.
All right, Bishop O'Connell, thanks for joining us today and lending your insight.
You're welcome.
Catholic colleges could really use some help. The Washington Post reported on the financial crisis facing two different universities. Georgetown University is making budget cuts because of a $50 million shortfall, while Trinity Washington students, who are mostly Black and Latino women, are dealing with a lack of financial aid for those without legal documentation, which the CARES Act excludes. Schools in South Korea have started reopening. High school seniors have returned to the classroom. Each has their temperature checked twice a day. Their desks are separated and lunch is served on tables with partitions. Younger students will come back later as long as this first phase goes well. Meanwhile, on Wednesday, 32 new cases of the virus were reported in the Asian country. Still to come on Currents News, diving deep for a piece of history, why the courts had to get involved in this titanic task. Also ahead, during this time of coronavirus, you wouldn't want to touch someone's teeth, right? So what's the tooth fairy to do? One little girl's got it covered. The search of the Titanic will soon be underway. Divers getting the okay to explore for a historic part of the sunken ship. A federal judge is letting salvagers cut into the vessel for the first time ever since it went down in 1912. The goal is to retrieve the ship's telegraph, which sent out one of the world's first ever SOS calls. The judge ruled in favor of the move out of fear the telegraph could be lost forever due to decay. And finally tonight, kids have a lot of questions about this pandemic, understandably. But one Michigan mom got a question she wasn't expecting from her 7-year-old. Can't the tooth fairy get the coronavirus? Michael Martin has her answer and the idea she came up with.
The tooth fairy is just kind of a human with wings, like a tiny little pixie human with wings. So can't she get the coronavirus?
It was a few weeks ago when 7-year-old EVOLETTE Westhouse proposed such a question to her mom, Kayla, after losing a tooth.
I was pushing my 2-year-old cousin in the hammock, and she kicked me in the face while she was in the hammock, and that just got it going. And then I grabbed it and, yanked on it. It took, 3 yanks until it got out.
The tooth was out, but before she put it under her pillow for the tooth fairy, she had some concerns.
And she came up to me and said, "Mom, would you please make me a mask for the tooth fairy?" And I said, "I don't think the tooth fairy can get coronavirus." And EVOLETTE said, "We don't know that."
So as moms do, she stayed up late and came up with this.
May have cut my finger 1 or 2 times, it was so small. And so then the next day, we woke up and I had the mask ready, and EVOLETTE wrote her note to the tooth fairy, and so that night we put it under the pillow.
And the next morning,
She left me $1 whole.
It was really hard. I had to iron it quite a bit to get those little pleats in there and make sure it could pop out and cover her nose and her chin, right? And no gaps.
Before this, EVOLETTE had been helping Mom make face masks for full-sized humans.
Then I put the other one in,
Yep.
then I hand you the mask.
Again and again, we did that a lot of times.
Kayla says she's glad that her daughter has been responding well to all the recent conversations about germs and staying safe.
It was nice to kind of hear that she's been listening to those things and understood them and had enough mindset to say, hey, I better make one for the tooth fairy. She's going to get pretty close.
Your teeth have to be pretty germy.
I think so.
Who wants to touch teeth without any gloves?
Yeah.
Not me. That was Michael Martin reporting. Good for EVOLETTE, wanting to keep us all safe. She was adorable. And before we leave you tonight, here's the website where you can help Catholic school students during the COVID-19 crisis. You can make a donation at futuresineducation.org/relief. The money will help students whose families have lost jobs pay their tuition. That's futuresineducation.org/relief. And that is Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us, because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.